The Kirby franchise is long-lived, iconic, and weirdly well-liked by game reviewers in spite of being ostensibly antithetical to much of what gamers claim to love about the medium. It's a series with an odd duality, at once among the most experimental Nintendo franchises, yet also one of the most derivative, and loved by the same critics who lavish most of their praise onto game design features that Kirby couldn't farther from represent. If you ask anyone why they like Kirby games, they'll probably remark about the franchise's ability to tap into the inner child, to fill the player with fun and wonderment and strike at the core of what makes video games appealing. But praise like that doesn't happen on accident, and there are plenty of other cute, kitty, and straightforward games that have nothing close to the legacy of the Kirby franchise, so I think it's time we looked a little deeper at it. The first game in the series was Kirbys Dreamland for the Game Boy. Kirby was white and kind of oblong, and while his primary mode of attack was still to inhale his enemies, the game didn't have the power snatching ability which would become a series staple soon afterwards. The original Kirby was meant to be an introduction to platforming games for people who hadn't played many video games before. Kirby could jump endlessly and remain airborne forever. He could take 6 hits before dying, and if he did die, he just went back to the start of the room. If he lost all of his lives, he went back to the start of the stage. Either way, the player lost very little progress even if they died consistently, which was pretty unlikely. Because the aim of the game was simplicity, it featured straightforward level designs without any significant challenge. Almost every enemy could be killed just by inhaling them, as well as by spitting them at other enemies, drop-kicking them, exhaling air onto them, or even just crashing into them. If a player rushed through the level with reckless abandon, they could afford to get hit several times along the way and just keep going because the game was so unpunishing. It wouldn't have been surprising to hear that Kirby was a success with its target audience, and to be completely honest, I think it's pretty obvious that Kirby was marketed towards children and girls. I'm not saying that only girls and kids could, or that all girls and kids would enjoy a cutesy, simplistic game, but I am totally saying that someone trying to market video games towards girls and kids would aim for those things. Long before Kirby was created, an iconic character called Pac-Man was based on the creator's attempt to market video games towards women. He said that he had listened to a lot of girls' conversations, and most of them had revolved around food, so he based his character on a pizza with a slice missing and had it eat constantly. The Kirby franchise is about a cute thing who eats a lot of sweets, and the game is full of food and sweets-themed levels. Kirby himself looks like one of the endless cutesy girly plush designs that comes out of Japan, and he's colored pink, which is widely cultured as a feminine color. Once again, I'm not saying that any of this is necessarily the right way of thinking, I'm just saying that it is what it is, and for the record, it worked. Kirby has always been a game series that transcended age and gender precisely because it was made to look accessible to young women. But again, Kirby's success with its target audience isn't what makes the franchise surprising, it's the fact that critics and gamers in general have embraced it over the years. The biggest criticism to face each Kirby game is that they're incredibly short, and it's no exaggeration to say that you could play through the entire franchise in like 3 days, even if you'd never played any of the games before. Kirby was praised for its comfortable controls, simple but fun platforming, and the overall charm of its audio-visual aesthetic. Critics tended to give the games an "it is what it is" pat on the back, but much like when it comes to certain cartoons, calling it an exceptional kids' game doesn't really explain why so many adult gamers are interested in the franchise. I was watching my younger brother play Kirby's Return to Dreamland on the Wii one day when the appeal of Kirby suddenly dawned on me. As he rushed through the levels, he was constantly in awe of how badass he was. He would pick up a giant sword and wreck everything on screen, or just bowl through a corridor full of enemies. No matter what happened, he was constantly charging forward, gaining more and more crazy and cool power-ups, and just utterly wrecking everything in his path, all while remaining an adorable puffball. That's when it occurred to me that the reason Kirby is so fun, even for hardcore gamers, is that the game is intensely gratifying. Kirby isn't just an easy game, it's a game in which the player character is insanely overpowered. It's the equivalent of playing regular platformer games with crazy hacks turned on. When Kirby came to the NES with Kirbys Adventure, it was expanded on in a number of ways. The graphics were improved, the levels got bigger and more spacious, the game had more content and now lasted over 2 hours instead of less than 1, and there was a little bit more of a difficulty curve, even if it was still utterly forgiving. However, the biggest addition to the game was that Kirby could now inherit the powers of enemies that he swallowed, giving him a wide array of new ways to attack. In other words, Kirby, who was already borderline unstoppable and able to destroy enemies just by breathing on them, now has a huge arsenal of unique ways to clear levels. When it comes to the main series Kirby games, most of them followed the same formula as Kirbys Adventure, with minor tweaks and gimmicks. In Kirbys Dreamland 2, Kirby rides on adorable animals that help him steamroll levels with more ease than ever. In Kirby 64, Kirby can combine powers to make his attack variety even more intense. In the Super Nintendo games, they started introducing variables on each power's attack based on which directional button the player is pushing. Kirby and the Amazing Mirror had a team of Kirbys to aid in attacks. Return to Dreamland featured super attacks and other crazy crazy screen clearing techniques. Even when Kirby massively changes up its formula, it tends to keep the same tenets of easy play and satisfying power. Kirby's Epic Yarn, which has a stronger focus on level design, which makes it more reminiscent of a Yoshi game, is still breezy, forgiving, and full of satisfying moments.
It's impossible to be in a bad mood when you're playing this game.
Yeah. Fucking.
You're just like, fucking God! Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The whole time I think I think your entire vocabulary was, oh my God.
Oh God, everything. Everything makes you feel so good. Look at the little car it turns into!
The only Kirby games which might really be outside the main appeal of the series are the out there games like Kirby's Pinball Land or Kirby's Dream Course, though even the racing game Kirbys Airride has a lot of the token simplicity and satisfaction. While each game can be judged on its own merits and fans will likely have a specific favorite, a few things are generally true about most of the games. None of them has an engrossing or even sensical storyline. While the art style is unmistakably lovely, the level designs are usually unmemorable with only a few exceptions. Kirby is much more of a mood game than a thinking game. It's a game in which the player and a few friends get together and just relax to the soothing visuals and music while they steamroll a game.
You know what I also like?
Yeah.
We share all the gems that we catch.
Oh yeah.
So like
it's truly cooperative.
It's not even like you're competing to get them.
Yeah, we're just fucking having a good time.
Yeah, everything's cool. And I'm just tossing you.
In flower
gardens. In the
gardens.
name of friendship.
Yeah.
Whee!
It's the ultimate appeal to the part of a gamer's mind that likes being competent at something and enjoying themselves. You may be wondering, what's my point here? Why explain something that's probably easy enough to figure out if you've ever asked yourself what makes a Kirby game fun? It's because no one does it! Game critics go on and on about how a deep storyline or the perfect marriage of story and play or the perfect structure and quality of level design are what separates great video games from merely good ones. Yet the people who would attack a game's redundant story or its uninventive design sense are often the very same people praising Kirby. What I'd like to see is people taking a step back to observe and appreciate this. Kirby isn't enjoyable by some stroke of magic. Brushing it off as a childish, innocent pleasure ignores the fact that it must be doing something to create those feelings in us. At its core, Kirby does only two things exceptionally well: convey a uniquely refreshing atmosphere and have an intensely gratifying control scheme. That's it. That's all it's taken to make this an iconic staple of the gaming industry. And I think understanding this fact can teach us a hell of a lot about game design and which things can make a game work. It's all fine and good to praise the amazing level design of Castlevania, Mega Man X, Metal Gear Solid 3, and Dark Souls. It's great that we can recognize the narrative grip of Journey, Mass Effect, and The Last of Us, but if we can't explain exactly why Kirby is so much fun, then I think we're glossing over some of the core tenets of video game design.